Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 52. Today we're interviewing a reoccurring guest. We've got Scott Stokely back on the show. You're not going to miss this one. Scott is currently traveling the world spreading the game of disc golf. Right now he's in Bangkok, Thailand. We got a 12-hour time difference. He's just got some fascinating stories to tell and some really cool things to share, so let's hop right into it. All right, we welcome on to the show a special guest, a reoccurring guest. We've had Scott on quite a while back, and he's back, and he's coming to us live from Bangkok. 12-hour time difference, the longest we've ever had on this show. Scott Stokely, thank you so much for joining the show.
Well, actually, a 12-hour difference is the longest you could possibly have for the show.
True, yeah, true. So there you go.
But we do change days. When we were in Australia, I would have, even now, I think I'm scheduling things. I'll do it one day, but I'll have to schedule the evening of the day before in the U.S. It's very confusing.
Yeah, honestly, I've never done anything crazier than just going to the West Coast, and that alone is like, oh my goodness, things are happening so much faster east of me right now. I can't imagine being that far ahead.
Well,
so
here's the deal. Check this out. I figured out why it happens. Are you aware of the fact that the Earth rotates? Because you went to American schools like me.
Yes.
They didn't teach us this in school, but apparently the Earth is spinning on its axis. So
yes,
yeah, now it makes perfect sense. But it's I'll tell you what. Without Google, just simply say what time is it in Detroit.
It is helpful.
Yeah, it would be a bigger challenge.
Yeah, pretty much every week when I interview somebody in a different time zone, I just Google the time of where they are, and that's how I figure it out. So you're in Bangkok right now, and you've been getting a bunch of surgeries done. You'd mentioned. Talk a little about that. What kind of surgeries have you had done?
Oh, I've had a number of different surgeries. They vary. They're all basically elective. I am not dying, other than in the sense that, technically we're dying of full lives. But if you take that whole, what would that be? I'm trying to think what philosophy that would be to always realize that you're dying. But anyways, is that nihilistic? Okay, so if you take out the nihilistic approach, I'm not dying. So basically, I could afford to have surgeries here that I couldn't afford to do in the U.S.
Sure.
I've quoted a couple different numbers changing, but I think when it's all said and done, it's going to cost about $30,000 for my surgeries out here, which is a ton of money, but it would be about $80,000 in the U.S.
Wow.
So, for example, if you look, you might notice that I have old man smile. Or I was going to say Alabama smile, but I don't want to insult all my Alabama, so I won't say that to be recorded and posted to the internet. But basically, though, I have old man smile, and but I have gone through all the steps necessary to get a full set of teeth in. I've had root canals, then I had extractions, then I had a bone graft where they actually went into my sinus cavity and put in a bone graft in my sinus cavity to give my upper jaw, whatever, enough material to screw the anchors in for the implants. And now it has to sit for 6 months, which means I'm going to come back to Bangkok next over the winter, and I can get full teeth in, and I'll just have a beautiful set of teeth. So
wow,
yeah, it's pretty impressive. The thing about the healthcare over here is, when you're in a big city, if you're in Kuala Lumpur, if you're in, Singapore for sure, obviously, but if you're in Kuala Lumpur, if you're in Chiang Mai, if you're in, whatever, Bangkok, Siem Reap, Ho Chi Minh City, the healthcare is just as good as it is in the U.S. or Europe. There's no step down in quality or protocol, training. This is just a hospital like any other. So there's no trade-off. It's just less expensive. I actually think that there's even, I feel like there's even a higher level of care from the staff. I think there's a lot, everyone seems to take a lot more pride in their job. No one's just showing up to work. Everyone takes pride in their job, and it's been an amazing experience.
That's cool. Man, it sounds like a pretty brutal recovery, though, with getting all that done. I hate the dentist just in general, so anything mouth surgery related. So, what's that been like going through those?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Well, so it's even. I'm going to play the victim here and say it's even worse for me than other people. But I've had problems with substance abuse in my past. It's been a long time, but I still won't take any narcotics. So I'm not taking any opioid based painkillers.
Oh wow.
I'm taking aspirin and ibuprofen is all I'm taking after they've like drilled holes in my heads to do bone grafts. That's made it quite a bit more painful, but nowhere near as painful as it would be to rediscover how much I like, taking a Percocet. Right? That's where.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I went under the gas a couple times, so they've put me under for some of the surgeries and actually general anesthesia. I've had different things done, so I haven't been there for most of it. I
Yeah. Well,
I awaken with them saying, "All done."
that's good. Honestly, at least you have that much because being drilled into like that's crazy. That's pretty intense.
Here's my recommendation: do the nitrous gas. You got to call around. Only about a third of places or quarter of places still do nitrous. Absolutely a million times better than not doing it. You just disassociate, go to another place. You still get all the lidocaine or novocaine injections, but when they're drilling in your teeth, you know they're doing it, but you're not really in your body, so you're kind of like observing it happen to you. Um, it's a I don't know. I wouldn't do it without that. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you're over there in Southeast Asia. You've been kind of touring Southeast Asia a bit. You've been around. What inspired you to kind of tour that area, and what have you been doing in Southeast Asia? What have you been up to, and how's that been?
So it's been amazing. So what inspired me? The original plan this winter, at the end of the season, was I wanted to go backpacking around Patagonia for like 3 or 4 months on horseback, and
Wow.
we were actually we were diligently learning as much as we could about horses because neither one of us ride horses, by the way. We were learning everything we could about horses so that we could go to southern Argentina and convince the people at the stables that we were horse people so they would rent us horses for like 3 months.
Oh
We'd
wow.
be able to like dress, saddle a horse, and just enough to like get the horses rented. Um, but I was asking Adriana just last summer. She does a lot of work. She does all my social media. She does the websites, all the scheduling. And I go, what would you like to do this winter? If you could do anything in the world, don't worry about money, don't worry about anything. Like, what is your like? What would you do in a dream? And she said she wanted to go see the cherry blossoms in Japan, which are end of March. Is that right? Yeah. So like the last couple weeks of March. So we booked the trip, or not booked, but I said, perfect. We're going to go to Japan for a few weeks in March to see the cherry blossoms. Then it became, well, if we're going to be over there, oh, there's a tournament, 2 weeks before in Cambodia. Oh, there's a tournament the weekend before that in Thailand. And then a tournament the weekend before that, then before that. And next thing you know, they were backtracking all the way. Well, we're already like, in Southeast Asia, we might as well go to New Zealand, which
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. It's like a 10-hour flight, but that was the thought. So we worked backwards to the Australian Championships uh, in November, and so that's kind of like how the trip came about. So yeah, I mean, we've talked before about this. I'm a full time nomad. Um, this right here, everything I own fits in that backpack.
Wow.
I don't have a storage unit. I don't have stuff. I have my work stuff separate. I got golf discs, merchandise, tour clothing. That's business. So when I do tour events, I'll have that stuff. But as far as, I don't have pictures from growing up in a box somewhere. I don't have couches in a storage unit. Like that's everything I own right there. And so we travel full time. And this is just, it's not like we're on a trip. This is just where we live. Today we live in this hotel room. And then next
Yeah.
week we'll be in Japan in 2 weeks. We'll be living in Japan for 2 weeks. And then we'll be living in wherever we are next. Uh,
That's awesome.
Basically it. So my goal at this point is to every winter just travel to places we've never been before. So the plan next winter is to do India and Africa, and then places in Southeast Asia we weren't able to go to. Maybe South America the winter after. I just want to
Yeah.
see everything. I don't have that many years left. Maybe
Yeah.
30, probably. I got
Yeah, that's that. That's so cool though, getting to see the world like that, and getting to, play disc golf in these developing countries too, where the sport is so fresh and new. What has it been like? Like, what is the disc golf experience like playing? You can see some of the coverage, playing in the Thailand events and such. But what is it like different than the U.S. experiencing the game in these different countries that it's so new out there?
So it's not as much of a new experience, the disc golf part, as reliving an old experience.
Mm,
So basically, I played my
I
first
love
round
that.
of golf on the world's first course when it was the only course in the entire world. So I've been playing since the very beginning, uh, from one course up to where there's now whatever 15,000 courses. Uh, Everything from nobody in the world except for 9 people know what we do. Yeah, maybe 900, but up to where, generally speaking, everybody knows what disc golf is now if you're in the US or Finland. So there's been a timeline of the evolution of disc golf. And so what I've realized is that everywhere I go when I go to a new country, they're just somewhere along this timeline.
Yeah.
Australia and New Zealand are very much like disc golf was in the 90s. Like, it's gotten bigger, lots of people have heard of it, the level of plays there, and it's like it's on the cusp of blowing up. Well, in Southeast Asia, it's like disc golf in the 80s, where you have a disc golf course, but it doesn't mean the person, 4 doors down from the course even knows what we're doing out there. You have to explain it to everybody. It's a very small group of people that play. But the thing that's amazing, I keep saying amazing, but it's probably the
Fair enough.
most accurate word for the experience, uh, is that there's this camaraderie within the sport that it's just different when you're an outcast and you have this little club and no one knows what you do, no one understands what you do but you. So the communities have that spirit that disc golf or even frisbee golf back before it was disc golf had. That it's not going to be that way when the sport has become so mainstream. That's not to say that people that played today aren't great and there's not a camaraderie. Of course there is, but it's not the same as
Yeah.
when like you go back 20 or 30 years ago when you went to a tournament. Half the guys at that tournament had to lie to their wives about what they were doing because, like, no one understood us but us, and there's something about
Yeah.
it's special, and that's what we're getting to do. So where I'm to take it a step further, though, my new passion, and not totally new, but like I'm gung ho. This is probably my life's passion at this point. Is I want to do everything I can to bring disc golf to developing countries.
Yeah.
There's 150 countries out there where they don't disc golf, or they have one course because an expat got 9 holes put in. Hats off to them, but things need to happen. So my passion now is going to be to bring disc golf or spread disc golf around the world. You know, like, I can't help disc golf in the U.S.
Right. Right.
I
Yeah.
die tomorrow. Disc golf in the U.S. does just fine without me. Finland won't even miss me. But if I can go to a country and I can play a part in helping grow the sport in this new country, I can plant seeds that where I made a difference. I made a difference in their world. So that's my passion now.
That's so cool, and that's really awesome. Like getting to relive that magic each time of that you got to see that happen in the U.S. on the biggest stage of where disc golf, and you've seen the full trajectory of that result. You were there at the beginning. You've seen where it's grown to now, multi-million-dollar industry, and being able to start that trajectory in each of these different countries, and knowing that the trajectory of disc golf, it's an accessible and affordable sport. So these less developed countries, there is that potential there for the sport to grow because it doesn't require too much land or too much equipment, and anybody can play. And I think that's so cool that you're getting to experience that each time. Are there certain areas or countries that are like really high on your list that you really want to take the sport to that haven't had it yet?
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there's like it truly is all of them. Um, so there are challenges with these developing countries. The biggest challenge, which some people are aware of, but they might not even understand the significance of this, because this is the largest challenge in our sport for developing countries, bar none. It's not even close. So, and forgive me if you already know this because a lot of people do, but when you manufacture things in developing countries, Bangladesh, China, obviously, India, something like that, the reason why you can get those goods manufactured uh, cheaper is number one, because labor costs are so much lower. And then also a secondary thing is the material costs. If they source the materials locally or maybe in a bordering country, uh, you can develop products really inexpensively, but it's labor intensive products. So that's why if you want to make a golf bag that you retail for $200, you can get it manufactured in China for 20. It's
Mm-hmm.
the labor that goes into the bag more than anything. Uh, when it comes to developing countries, land's available, manpower is available. You can build baskets at a reasonable cost because you can source materials locally. You can have the process of being built, even if they're done by hand, fairly reasonably. Uh, that does not hold true for golf discs.
Mm.
Golf discs, uh, polyurethane, and forgive me if I get it wrong, but polypropylene and polyethylene, I believe,
Yeah.
they're petroleum based.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have petroleum based products, you basically have a global cost of petroleum.
Yeah.
Like plastic isn't significantly cheaper in Indonesia than it would be in the US or Finland. It might be a little bit less because the people working the docks, unloading the boats, get charged less. I mean, there's going to be a difference, but not significantly. So the problem is that manufacturing discs, you just cannot manufacture discs for much less money.
Mm.
Certainly, importing discs that are manufactured in the West, they're by the time you pay customs and shipping, you're talking about $30 a disc. Well, in a lot of developing countries, $1 an hour is a pretty decent wage.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like laying concrete or doing like actually important work. If you're making $1 an hour and you're barely keeping your head above water, and a golf disc is $30, it is not accessible to you. The costs of discs are too much, and you cannot make these golf discs in these countries because the material costs are what's where the cost is. All right,
That's
so
crazy.
that's the biggest challenge. But I have started working with a company they are working right now to develop uh, manufactured golf discs using non-petroleum based materials
Mm.
that are going to be, if they're successful, will make disc golf accessible to everyone on Earth. Now, this is not some revolutionary new material that is going to make professional golf discs that you're going to see on the DGPT, right? It's going to be an inferior quality disc compared to the professional high end quality discs. But that's not relevant to these countries. What's relevant to these
Right.
countries is discs need to retail for $1,
Mm-hmm.
which means materials, manufacturing, shipping, distribution, customs to a retailer that makes a profit selling it in another country. The price has to be at $1, is what I say.
Yeah.
We think that we can do this. So this is
That'd
not
be awesome.
that's a massive for-profit business. It's borderline a nonprofit, like
Yeah.
maybe paying salaries to the people that are working at the plant. But if we can pull this off, then all of a sudden disc golf will instantly become accessible to the 90% of the world that it kind of isn't at the moment. Maybe 80%.
Yeah. That would be huge. I think it'd be cool. I mean, it sounds to me like I feel like I mean, even myself, I have such an excess of discs. Is there a good way to like be able to donate discs?
100%. Every one of these countries, that's where they get all their discs, their donations. You
Yeah.
can come uh, go to Disc Golf Malaysia, Disc Golf Thailand, Disc Golf Cambodia. Those are the last three countries I competed in. All of them will
Yeah.
get discs, and they will all get used. None of the people in those clubs are selling those discs for profit. They're
Yeah.
all just giving them away. So
That's cool.
yeah, these organizations, I can speak for every one of these organizations. This is their yeah. What you don't want to do, and this is unfortunate, but there have actually been. I hate to even say this; it's so negative, but there have been some third-party people that have collected discs for
Mm.
overseas, and the discs never made it. So
Oh
just,
man.
stick them in a box and then ship them directly. They'll get used.
Wow. Okay. Well, hey, if you're listening to this right now and you're like me and you have extra disc laying around, and go ahead and go to one of those sites and send them out. I think that's an awesome cause because I never expected discs to be what was holding the sport back. Like that really shocked me. I think that everybody probably learned something there. And I know that we have more discs than we need here, and we should definitely donate some and get it out there because I think that would be a great cause to get involved in. And I'm going to send some out.
That'd be awesome. So, I mean, the thing is, like I said, the dollar is just so strong compared to these countries. We were just in
Yeah.
Cambodia. You can get a really good meal for under $1. And I'm talking about a meal, a fruit smoothie, a cup of coffee and tea, your meal, maybe a side dish for like 80 cents. Just
Wow.
just the way the currency translates.
Yeah.
And that's having food prepared for you. So we have been out to places where the people work their full-time job and then they go out every night and fish, and they do it almost 7 days a week, and they're making $1 an hour. Like they're never gonna have $30 for a disc.
Yeah.
But $1, even $1 is it's not cheap, but that's a reasonable investment for somebody. An hour's pay it's a reasonable investment.
Right.
And by the way, once the player if they get into it and they start becoming successful, we know the sponsors are going to send them the high-end discs. So
Yeah.
prevent these players from moving past these starter discs. It's just that's the barrier to entry needs to be low.
That's so cool. So I wanted to talk as well to you about, you're in Southeast Asia right now, but you have plans to play on some European tours this year. And I think you mentioned that you were going to play on both of the European tours that are presently going, because I know there's a Euro tour and then a European Pro Tour. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
There's also a Swedish tour, and then I think Prodigy has a tour in Finland.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not playing any like politics or taking sides. I just basically am going where I want to go based on the geography and the dates on the schedule. One of the things I've always done or tried to do, which I can't do because I get overwhelmed now. But generally speaking, when people reach out to me and tell me how much they want me there, and then they follow up, the more I feel like I'm wanted at a place, that definitely pulls me towards that place.
Sure.
I mean, right now it's like it's impossible. I mean, every weekend I'd have to go be at like 5 places at once. But a lot of the places I chose were because I kept just getting bugged. Like, you got to come to this tournament. I'm like, all right, I'll be there. But yeah, I'm going to be playing both of those tours all the way from
Wow.
April until September. And
Yeah.
by the way, I'm playing really good golf.
I've been noticing.
The last 2
Yeah.
tournaments, I won the MPO division. I know they're smaller fields, but there were some very good golfers there.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
we didn't have the massively deep field. I averaged about 1027. I played 6 rounds in a row over 1020.
Yeah.
6 rounds in a row. That's
legit.
That's the longest streak I've had of that, at least since I've aged. I'm sure when I was younger, I did it all the time, but now it's a pretty big deal for me. Yeah, I mean, that's 1027 isn't winning on the Euro Tour, but it's a stroke or two around away.
Yeah.
It's very close. So I'm on the cusp.
Yeah, are you interested to see kind of how the strength of field? Now, I know at one point you'll run into Macbeth out there for a few events. I know he's going to be out there for a handful of them. But are you interested to see how the strength of field is out there? Because that's something I'm very curious about.
All right. So first off, what you meant to say is that at some tournaments, Macbeth is going to run into me.
That's true. That's true.
Be clear about this. Europe, and I'm also old. No, I know exactly what the fields are going to be like. I mean, ratings are a very accurate measure for those people who aren't math people. They think the ratings are BS. They're not BS. Everything about the ratings is a pretty darn accurate measure of skill level. And yeah, I mean, you go to a tournament, there's a whole ton of 1,000-rated players. There aren't a whole lot of the 10, well, except for when like Paul comes. There's not typically a bunch of like 1040 players.
Yeah.
And 50 players, but the amount of players over 1,000 or 1,010 is high. And when you have a whole stacked field full of 1,000-rated players, you're going to get players that shoot 1040 for the weekend.
Yeah.
thousand-rated player that shoots 1035, 1040 for a weekend. So that's what it's going to take to win out here. When Paul's here, it's probably going to take more. Or not just Paul. There's a leg where a number of players from the U.S. are going to come over. Um, in my opinion, they're just following me. But
You're right.
I write my own reality and then believe what I write. So I'm sure they're going to be good. The players are great. This is not. I'm not over here because it's a second tier tour. I give away my prize money. I don't care about. It has nothing to do with wanting to compete against a different field. I'm here just to play a brand new experience. But
Yeah.
I want people to see, and I want to promote this idea, is touring in disc golf does not mean going on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Going on the Disc Golf Pro Tour means going on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. That's not touring. Touring means traveling and playing disc golf as your job. Playing, competing, clinics, merchandising, and all the other stuff you can do to monetize it. You could travel all over the U.S., never play a DGPT tournament, play A tiers and B tiers with great fields, great added money on great courses, having a blast. You could also go to Europe, and you could compete all over Europe. There's prize money and good players and opportunities to merchandise and do lessons and all the other things, produce content. In the winter, you can go to New Zealand and Australia, and you'll make some money. You don't have to be
Yeah.
1040 rated, down there to win prize money. But also, you show up in Australia with a bunch of custom stamped discs, you'll sell them all. You'll make
Yeah.
money. So I really want to promote the idea that there's not just this one tour. There's the premier tour, in terms of talent, money, and recognition. But that's not what touring is. Touring just means you figured out how to not be shackled to your cubicle, or you figured out how to not lay bricks like Monday through Friday. You figured out how to throw frisbees in a park, and then fed yourself doing it.
Yeah, no, certainly. There a lot of people get that tunnel vision on the pro tour, being as it is like the mainstream
Yeah.
way to do it. But there are so many ways, and I've always encouraged people that talk about wanting to be a professional. Try just doing the tour within 5 hours of where you are first. Just go around, play the A's and B tiers. Try and do that thing before going for the pro tour, or just find what you enjoy. Because you could go over there to Europe and play the European tour, and that's a very developing tour right now. One thing I've always wondered, and you would probably be more familiar with the more foreign tours to the pro tour, is so in Europe there are a lot of more niche sports over there that have gained significant traction compared to what they would in the U.S. There's a good bit of sports that are just much more popular over there. A good example would be handball, for example. The handball is not very big in the U.S. In Europe, it's very big. Could you see disc golf finding a trajectory where it hits a ceiling in the U.S., but in Europe it's amplified? Because I think early on, even in the European days, we saw them handling disc golf super professionally. They always have taken it very seriously. Could you see it ever getting past where it is taken in the U.S.?
Oh my God, yes. So I'm. Well, first I want to just touch on something you said, and then I'll move on to this. Playing tournaments close to your house, competing near home, and then going back to work on Monday is a lot of fun. It's not touring.
True.
Touring is, I don't have to go to work Monday morning. I need to go putt.
Yeah.
So when it comes to elevating your game, nothing will elevate your game more than being on tour. But it doesn't have to be DGPT. But the idea that when you get to eat, sleep, and drink disc golf, you just through osmosis alone will get better. Because that can be your whole focus. It is your job. It is your career. So you don't have to play the big tournaments, but I would say if you want to do it, travel out west or something like that. That don't play within 5 hours of your home. I would say get far enough away where you can't come home on the weekdays. That's when the fun starts. So yeah, I'm as far as disc golf growing. I can explain this, but it's going to take a minute. Do you have a minute?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, let me take one more drink of coffee because I'm going to go on. Okay, I'm going to explain exactly why disc golf will be the most played and most popular sport on planet Earth
Okay.
at some point. Okay.
I'm ready.
And this is not just because, the disc is so beautiful to fly. I mean, everybody thinks their sport is beautiful or it's good exercise or blah, blah, blah. I can actually back this up with pretty solid reasoning. So let me start, and I told you this is going to take a minute, but I'm going to start by I want to make the case that golf, just the sport of golf, is the greatest sport on earth. Now, as
Okay.
soon as I say this, most people's response would be, "Have you never heard of soccer?" or have
Right.
you never heard of cricket, depending on the country you're in, or rugby if you're in New Zealand, baseball if you're in the U.S.? Here's my case as to why golf is the greatest sport on earth, is that a huge percentage of professional baseball players, soccer players, cricket players, and rugby players, when they retire, the professionals retire from their sport, they all take up golf. Nobody
True.
retires from the PGA Tour and takes up rugby, right?
It's true.
Everything filters in one direction. It doesn't matter what sport you play, it filters down towards golf. So I would say, in my opinion, golf is probably the greatest sport in the world. The problem with golf is it's not accessible to everybody because of cost and depending on regions of the world, they don't have golf courses or not many, or they're just not affordable. But professional athletes who can play anything they want after they retire, they pick golf. Now, there's so many things that make golf such a great sport. There's been entire books, probably 1,000 books written on what makes golf great. But it's your personal journey, it's overcoming obstacles, it's the mental challenge, it's the camaraderie of friends, it's the you know playing a whole round for that one shot that just reminds you why you're out here, right? I mean, there's a long list of things why people golf and why golf is such a great game. Every single one of those things that makes golf the greatest sport in the world, according to my argument, disc golf also offers. So there's nothing that you lose between when you go from ball golf to disc golf as far as what makes the sport of golf great. However, you do gain things with disc golf over ball golf. It is more affordable. It does have a lower barrier to entry. You do need fewer acres. It's less of an environmental impact because you don't have to water the terrain. You could play around a golf in an hour and a half on the way home from work. You don't have to set aside, your Saturday all day in order to golf. So, and there's, by the way, it's even a far more variety in what a course looks like. I know all ball golf
Yeah.
look different, but shoot them from an airplane, they all look like golf courses. Disc
It's
golf
true.
has a wide variety. So disc golf offers everything ball golf does, but also a bunch of other things, which tells me that disc golf has more to offer than ball golf. And I'm not crapping on ball golf. I just started by saying it's the greatest sport in the world. So if you have any ball golfers listening, I'm honoring your sport by saying this. But disc golf is ball golf, but it offers more. Now, ball golf is not accessible to everybody, but it's such a great sport that among the people that it is accessible to, people that have the money to take it up as a hobby and not have to check their bank account before they play, people that can actually just go out and shoot around to golf or join a country club. What percentage of people play ball golf? Like 20% probably or something, right? It's not 20% of the people in the US or Europe play ball golf. But
Yeah.
20% of people that can afford to play ball golf too, there is not another sport in the world that is even close to the percentage of people that can play it that choose to play it.
Mm.
Inaccessibility is what has kept golf's numbers where they are. So you have everything that ball golf has to offer, disc golf offers, and it is accessible to far more people to a point where once it's in developing countries, when we get there, it's going to be accessible to everybody. Well, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't have the same percentage of people playing disc golf that it's accessible to as they do in ball golf. But we're starting with a significantly larger pool of players that it's accessible to. So
It's
if we
true.
can match, which I think we can better because of all the things disc golf offers, ball golf doesn't. But if worst case scenario, we only match what ball golf does, and our percentages are ball golf percentages to our much larger group of people that it's accessible to, those numbers dwarf every other sport on earth.
Yeah.
And I think there's some logic to that. That I think we're going to be the biggest sport in the world. I
I mean,
truly believe this.
it is. I mean, it's obviously impossible to know from now, but it is certainly a sport that is seems to be set up in that way that it's hard to see like what could bring apart or bring about a failure in it because it's so simple and it's so affordable that like you said, the accessibility is there. People are allured to the game of golf. I think a lot of people like that idea of you can play by yourself too, because that's another thing you didn't really mention. But like soccer, baseball, you need to gather a lot of people to play those sports, to make it really work. Whereas golf, it's just yourself. That's all you need.
And every one of these sports every sport's beautiful, and whatever sport you play that you find the most joy in, it's a beautiful thing that you found your sport. I'm not knocking any other sport. Just all the pieces are in place based on a completely logical chain of thought that says that disc golf will become this. Let me ask you a question. This is here. I'm going to give you a fun philosophical question for your viewers. This is my favorite
Okay.
disc golf philosophical question. Based on what I said, if you agree with that logic that disc golf offers everything ball golf does, but it offers, it's less expensive, barrier to entry, less environmental impacts, shorter round
Mm-hmm.
times, more varied terrain, etc. Okay, but offers everything ball golf does.
Mm-hmm.
If disc golf had been invented first, would ball golf exist? Now,
Mm.
now, the first thought is, well, of course, ball golf's an amazing game. Look how many people love ball golf. I'm not suggesting some people wouldn't have liked ball golf. What I'm saying is if disc golf had existed first, and there's 30,000 disc golf courses, let's say in the U.S., and let's say somebody went out to a disc golf course and said, "Wow, this is such a popular, great sport. I invented a version of disc golf. It's going to cost $100 a round. It's going to take 5 hours to play. First, we have to purchase 200 acres and hire a team of people. Um, but trust me, you're like once you play it. By the way, it's going to take forever to get the hang of. Like, how many people take up that game when everything that they had gotten out of golf, they were getting out of disc golf? Would ball golf have ever caught on had it come second? And I'm not
That
saying
is a
I'm saying that's my
It's a good question, and it really is a good question. I don't know. I mean, because I would argue that the only thing that ball golf does have that disc golf doesn't, like an obvious one to me is the distance. You can hit a golf ball a lot further, and that does appeal to some people. However, when the game first started, if we're going to kind of play that way, the ball wasn't going nearly as far. They were hitting something that was like wrapped around in yarn or whatever, and they were hitting with wooden clubs. So it really wouldn't have been that crazy anyways. So that's actually a good question because like basically what we did with imitating the game of golf is we took other sports we liked and made them in that format because like foot golf exists. They took soccer and they turned that into the format of golf. We took obviously frisbee and we turned that into the format of golf. So it would almost be like like what sport would have turned into that because they were imitating disc golf if that came first. It would have been like hockey would be like the closest thing realistically. So I honestly the answer might be no. Like it really might not have ever happened if disc golf had come first. That is interesting to think about.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, I'm not pooping on golf. I am paying homage to the sport by saying it is like we took our sport from the greatest sport in the world. Ball golf is amazing. And if 100 people were introduced to disc golf and ball golf, I'm not saying 100 out of 100 would choose disc golf. There's a percentage of people that would choose ball golf. But would it be enough to sustain what's required with 200 acres of land and a staff of greenskeepers and $100 around, like and $1,500 worth of golf clubs to get started? Wouldn't
Yeah.
you need a community of X number of thousand people? You can't build a golf course like the first golf course in a city that doesn't already have 1,000 ball golfers in it. waiting for a course to be built. I mean, it's too expensive.
Yeah, it is difficult to
Put
sustain.
baskets in and wait for the first person to play. You can do that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of advantages there.
I just made all your audience hate me, by the way. Sorry.
No, I don't really know. There's that much of an audience for that. I'm not really sure. We'll find out in the comments, I guess.
Tell me how.
Well, I got some. What's that?
Yeah, post in the comments how much you hate me for these horrible.
Hey, no, I actually want to hear people's answer in the comments to that question if they think golf would have come around, and I want to know like their reasoning for that because I think that's an interesting one. So I have some fun questions for you because I know you've been traveling a lot, and I want to kind of hear some of your answer to these. So, first question: best food that you've eaten while traveling?
All right, so I'm going to dodge the question just a little bit.
Okay.
The reason why I travel full time, the reason I'm a full time nomad, is that I would rather have an awful day tomorrow doing something I've never done before than go back and do something I've already done that was awesome. Like
Okay.
experiences. So we never go to the same restaurant twice. Neither one of us, Adrian and I, we don't order the same food twice. So it's hard to pick one because we're just trying something different every single day. Now, a lot of the places we eat, we when possible, we get out of towns, we get away from the tourists. I'll give you like an example. When we were in Indonesia, I don't know if I'll ever go to Bali. Sorry, no offense, Bali, but all I see are pictures of a bunch of Western tourists doing some
Yeah.
thing. That's not the way that's just not us. So we went over to Batam, but then we got an hour outside the city of Batam. We got as far enough away where there'd be no white people at the hotel. Nothing against my whitey friends. I love my whitey friends. I love all of you guys, but I've seen you for 50 years. I'm not in Indonesia to see you. And so I'm just pissing everybody off. But you see any Western tourists at this hotel. And then every morning we would call a Grab, which is like the Indonesian or Asian version of Uber. We'd call a Grab. You have to put in a location when you call for Uber of where you're going to go. So we would just pick some random spot on this island, and then tell the driver we were going there. You're charged in full for the trip, which was like 75 cents for a 20-mile drive. But when we would just drive until we saw like a village and we'd be like, pull over, let us out. And then we would just wander into a village. And
Wow.
people have little, they'll have their garage will be open and they'll have like two tables and like a grill and then a menu. And that's their restaurant. And so, and by the way, none of them spoke a word of English. And the restaurant did not have English translations because no one who speaks English has ever been there before. So we would just look at the menu and just point to stuff.
Wow.
We had some amazing meals and some other ones that, like, I swear I ate spiders. Where was that? Where was, right? Those are spiders, right? Yeah, I think they were spiders. I don't know. I have no idea. I think I ate spiders once, which they might have tasted good, but in my mind, since I thought they were spiders, like I couldn't make myself like them.
Yeah.
So it's been weird. But by the way, when you do this, we actually people invited us like into their homes. We had a woman who baked us. She spoke a little English. She said, "Have you had Indonesian layer cake?" We're like, "No." She goes, "Oh, I need to bake you guys cakes." She probably didn't say "you guys." She says, "I bake you," and she baked us each a cake and then put it in a Tupperware thing for us to take with us. And like we ate it
Wow.
for like 3 days. That she just like baked for us. That was amazing. But we had also wait, no, that was Indonesia. In Cambodia, we ate a chicken that had made the mistake of running across like their front yard, okay? And it was not, no one owned it, and it's like a chicken runs across it. That, we ate that big chicken that had we been there 2 hours before, we would have seen walking. And we ate chicken feet, which is really weird because you just kind of pick the skin off. It tasted fine, but just I'm not so evolved that I don't kind of trip out at this stuff. It's still weird. All right, so that's the long answer. We like weird and unusual things. I think we both agree. You think it's a crab? Okay, so we're both in agreement. We were also, ironically, Indonesia. There was a place that was pulling crab right out of the water, and we had this chili. Is it chili crab? It was the spiciest thing I've ever eaten in my entire life. But it was just they just bring you this big gigantic crab covered in chili, and it was probably the best thing we ate.
Man, that's crazy. The culinary depth you've been able to experience is just insane. I'm sure, like getting to eat all those different things. That's super cool. That you're like, I mean, if you're gonna travel all that way, you might as well try new things each time and really get
Oh
the full
God!
experience.
Everywhere we go, the people are like, they're like, oh, if you need help, like if they're like at the hotel, if you need help finding a restaurant, the place next door has cheeseburgers. What are you talking about? Why would like that is crazy to want to eat cheeseburgers? Like doesn't make any sense. Um, but I will tell you this: I give Southeast Asia a D- on ice cream.
Ooh, okay.
They don't. I've had. I'm not kidding. I've had ice cream here. There was like chocolate ice cream. Where have you ever like tasted cooking chocolate?
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, like if there's no sugar in it, it doesn't taste like Hershey's chocolate. I've
Hmm.
had ice cream. I swear to God, there was like a ton of Hershey's chocolate and no sugar. It wasn't sweet at all, but it was called ice cream. But but the trade off is they have all their local Asian desserts that are like totally different. Here, I'll give you one more that we've had. This,
Okay.
this is all over. Every country here has a version of this. I think it's Chinese. What is the big snow volcano thing? Okay, we've sat down at a place where it'll take like 40 minutes to prepare your dessert for you. Is it Korean? It's called what? Bingsu is the Korean version,
Okay.
but basically they make this like this snow volcano like this tall. It's probably for like four people, but the two of us we actually can eat the whole thing. But it's like made of snow, but the snow doesn't melt somehow, which is doesn't make any sense. But the snow is flavored in different flavors, so you have like it's almost like a more durable, like several different Slurpee flavors. But it could be chocolate, caramel, and blueberry, and some local fruit flavor. And then it's covered in all these different fruits on the outside, and then it's got gelatin little balls on the bottom underneath it. But basically, it takes 40 minutes to make this thing because as you start digging in there, you start finding like treasures of like different desserts inside this volcano.
Whoa.
And with all the different fruits, the variety of fruits, like the sides have all these different flavored syrups. I would say there's a good 20 different. Would you say 20 different desserts? Like 20 different dessert items on like this one volcano dessert thing. So like they fail on the ice cream, but these things are just ridiculous.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, and it's like $10, which is
Wow.
crazy expensive when your meal costs $1 or $1.50.
Yeah.
It costs 10. Um, but yeah, it's an experience.
Man, well,
They'll
yeah, I
be
mean, you
expensive local versions, but ridiculous.
yeah. Well, so I mean, you've had all of these insane experiences now, and one thing I was curious about is you've written a book before. I read the book growing up disc golf, so I want to know, years down the road after you've had all of these traveling experiences, are we going to see another book
Yeah,
detailing these experiences?
yeah. I've already written a book. The next draft of my next book because growing up disc golf ends in 2001, and the next book it follows like the next 20 years
Oh, wow.
ish, including my time away from the sport, which was I mean, not the happiest time in my life. It was pretty bad. Well, I mean, some of it was amazing. A lot of it was amazing, raising my daughter and stuff like that. But that doesn't make the best stories. The best stories are when things went bad. But
Yeah.
I honestly share them all, for sure. Where you can follow, at the moment, I'm blocked on Facebook because
Yeah, I heard.
they couldn't verify my identity. It has nothing to do with like being banned for any reason, but it's because I'm posting from all these different countries. But there's a page called Scott Stokely Adventures,
Okay. Yeah.
and I also have an Instagram and a YouTube, but they are newer. Scott Stokely Adventures Facebook page has all of the non-disc golf stuff. To me, it's way more interesting than the disc golf stuff. but it's only a fraction of the people want to see it. I try to not make like vacation photos. I'm trying to share like all these locations and adventures. Um, the thing about traveling about this type of thing is it doesn't have to be your life, but traveling doesn't have to just be a vacation either.
Hmm.
Uh, Something like where we are in Southeast Asia, like aside from your plane tickets aren't cheap, but you could do 3 months in Southeast Asia with a backpack for $3,000.
Yeah.
And I'm talking $3,000. You're not struggling. You're actually you're staying at like the last hotel room we got. We got an expensive hotel room here because I'm recovering from another surgery. So we actually wanted to get a nice place, like a expensive place with. But the last place we stayed at before here was $6 a night, king size,
Wow.
$6, and the meals are $1. So like if you pick the right places in the world, you can do a lot of adventure stuff really inexpensive. You want to go to Japan or Singapore or New Zealand? Yeah, it's like you're going to run out of money really fast. But there's plenty of amazing places. Southeast Asia is it's 100% safe. Um, Big cities might have petty theft. Just don't set your phone on a table and go to the bathroom. I mean, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
But like, there's almost virtually zero violent crime out here. Like nobody's gonna mug you. No one's gonna rob you in an alleyway. Like you're safe at 3 o'clock in the morning, basically anywhere in Bangkok. Like you can have the best adventure here, and it's not expensive. So I just so encourage people to try it if you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah, I'm inspired, honestly. I want to get out and play some of the disc golf out there and see those parts of the world. I mean, it's really cool what you've been able to do and see the world. And I think it's something that not a lot of people are willing to like take that step and just say, hey, I'm going to go out and just see everything and get to experience it. Because so many people don't even ever really, leave their state. That's the thing that a lot of people end up in. But yeah, I mean that's all I got for you this morning. Well, at night for you, Scott. But thanks so much for joining the show. I think you are officially the most interesting man in disc golf. I think you deserve that label at this point. And it's awesome what you're doing.
I'm having a blast, and again, I want to encourage people to do this. Let me chat about that for just a minute because
Yeah,
one thing I want to do is if I can, and this word gets so overused, the word inspire. Someone that like they shared a couple inspirational memes. It's like you're not inspiring anybody with that. You're like if you're not helping create an actual action plan or show people how it's possible. I don't think it's very inspiring. Um, what I can share with you when it comes to traveling, the biggest question people ask is, well, but what happens if, and at the end of that sentence is irrelevant because they're always asking, what happens if you run out of this, or what happens if you hurt yourself here? What happens if you lose your wallet here? What happens if you can't find this, or what happens if? And that is such a big barrier because there's a lot of anxiety because if you had to list all the things that the what ifs that could happen, you could like I don't know, I bet you could easily if you had a weekend list 1,000 what ifs. And
yeah,
every one of those can happen. I'm not negating the possibility that any or all those, not all of them, but those things happen. All the what ifs can happen. And actually, I will guarantee you that some of those what ifs will happen. But the answer to every one of those questions is you solve it.
mm,
That's the thing. Yeah, like people just they get anxiety, and I think they freeze at that point. What if this happens? Well, it doesn't matter what the question is. What happens if I run out of so and so? You go to a store and you buy it. Well, what happens if I break my arm? You go to a doctor. What happens if I run out of money? You go home. Like what happens if I can't if the hotel's booked? You go to the next hotel. Like there is no what if scenario that is as big as you think it is. But when you look at all the what ifs together, like you can almost have a panic attack.
yeah,
And I'm not suggesting this is an easy thing to overcome. When it's new, like it's totally understandable that you have anxiety about doing big things. But but don't let the anxiety stop you because if the anxiety stops you, then you don't do these big things that you like. They're life changing. You'll look
Yeah.
back the rest of your life like nobody's going to backpack across Southeast Asia for 4 months and then in 20 years go, man, if I'd only spent 4 more months at work, imagine how much further up the corporate ladder I would have gotten.
Right.
0 people say that. 100% of people say, man, you know what the best time of my life was? That 4 months I backpacked across Southeast Asia. Now, everyone has different challenges, right? I mean, like, look, if you're older and you have kids and you have a good job that and a mortgage, I mean, yes, like that's tougher. I'm not suggesting that it's just easy to throw off the shackles, but it doesn't mean that someday the kids aren't going to be out of the house. It doesn't mean that someday you're not going to be in a position to do this.
Yeah.
So it can be a long-term plan, but if you're younger, my God, if you're younger and you don't have kids or responsibilities yet, like stop working on your career and go have fun. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear.
You're good.
like you're young. Go live now. You got plenty of time to get into middle management, or you got plenty of time to finish college. You got plenty of time to start a family. Like if you haven't done these things yet, like you're never going to be 19 years old again. You're never going to be 21 years old again. You're never going to be without children again if you haven't had children yet. So just just do these things, Go to my adventure page. If you have any questions about anything related to traveling or nomading, message me on my adventure page, and I'll reply to you and give any feedback I can. But just go live life if you can, and if you can't right now, make a plan to live life later.
Awesome. Very inspiring words from
And
you,
now
Scott.
now I'll get off my soapbox for just a minute. So
No,
please,
it's good.
came across preachy, but I want everybody to live.
Hey, somebody needed to hear it. Somebody is gonna make that trip. So
I hope
that
so.
yeah, definitely. Well, hey, thanks again, Scott, for coming on. Appreciate you.
Awesome, man. I can't wait. It was enjoyable. Anytime you want me back, if you get hard up for guests, I'll always have time for you.
Absolutely. All right, thanks once again to Scott for joining the show. It's always fascinating hearing about his world travels and everything he's got going on. Make sure to check out those websites he mentioned where you can donate discs to those developing countries that are trying to grow the sport. I didn't realize that discs was like the main thing that they were really needing that's holding them back. That's something that we have so many of, and that I think it'd be really cool if we could help them out. So make sure to check that out. Other than that, we'll see you back next week with another episode.